When I first drove the MG4, it's fair to say I was deeply impressed with it. It was a good all-round electric C-sector family hatchback. And when they introduced the XPower version of it, with over 400 horsepower, a 0 to 60 time of less than 4 seconds, and a price at less than £38,000, it's fair to say that that made me sit up and take notice of it. But I always maintained that whilst the MG4 XPower was fast, it wasn't exactly fun. But MG aren't a brand to rest on their laurels, and despite launching a raft of new models over the last couple of years, they've now turned their attention back to the MG4, and they've tweaked it here and nipped and tucked it there. And now they tell me it's even better. And the most impressive thing of them all? It's even cheaper. Welcome to another new car review. Welcome to the newly revised MG4 XPower. Please sit yourself down and make yourself very comfortable indeed in the house of cars. Now, since it first launched back in 2022, the MG4 has gone on to become the UK's 4th best-selling electric car. Now, you might not think that sounds like a particularly impressive statistic, but I'm not talking about the 4th best-selling electric C-sector hatchback. I'm talking about the 4th best-selling electric car across all market sectors. Now, when you think about how big the electric car market has got since the MG4 was launched, I think that is pretty impressive. But like I say, MG are not a brand to rest on their laurels, and they've embarked on a continuous range of improvements to existing models and introducing new ones. In fact, their oldest model now is the MG3 hatchback, and that only appeared in 2024. So they're doing not too bad. But what have they changed to the MG4 to bring it more up to date, considering now there is a strength in the competition and much more cars that it's going to compete with? Well, it's a change of interior materials and also a simplification of the range. But most important of all, they've made it even better value for money. However, before we move on, here are 5 quick key facts that everyone needs to know about the newly revised MG4. Well, it still sits on the brand's first bespoke EV platform, the modular scalable platform that's gone on to underpin newer models such as the MGS5 EV and MGS6 EV. It's still a C-sector 5-door hatchback, a market that accounts for 40% of all new car sales here in the UK. There's a simplified 3-model lineup in the new MG4 line: the premium long range, premium extended range, and the scintillating XPower that we have here. There's a choice of 2 battery sizes for the range, and will offer ranges up to between 251 miles and 338 miles depending on model. And the price has also been revised to now sit between £29,995 and £33,995, including a 7-year warranty depending on model. Now, there's lots of impressive things about the new MG4, but that last one, that revised price, especially for this fast XPower one, has got to be one of the most important. It's cheap, but is it cheerful? Well, let's stick it through a House of Cars road test review and find out. Now, there are lots of changes to the MG4, but one area that they've left well alone, I'm glad to say, is its design. Because I've always loved the way the MG4 looks. I think it's a great looking car. And MG's design sort of really has evolved, I think, from this car in some respects, because it's got that X motif. I don't know if you can see it, you know, the lights come in there and the vents are there, and it's the same on the other side, and it gives it that sort of X motif. And that's gone on to sort of like, you know, be sort of like evident in their other cars, the MGS5, the MGS6, you know, and some of their other models. But I think the MG4 still looks really, really sharp, especially when you look at it against something quite frumpy, dare I suggest, as the Volkswagen ID3, and something quite plain and ordinary looking like the Vauxhall Astra, another car that obviously that competes with in the C sector. So I think the design of it, keeping it the same, was a good call. There's some new colours on the car, of which this is one of them. I think this is called Ealing Green, which is quite poignant because I used to live in Ealing, so that's quite nice that they're giving me this. But I love this sort of like the nice angry looking headlights here. There's some active cooling down at the bottom here, obviously the flaps that open and close depending obviously on what's needed. You've got some little flashes of little carbon fibre depth around the outside, but it's not in your face, it's just really subtle little things. Now, one thing that I was maybe not criticised for, but when I first drove the MG4 XPower when I worked for Auto EV, and I said it's a shame that they didn't make it look a little bit more hot hatchish in some respects. A lot of people went, well, it's a real proper Q car, it's a real sleeper. And I've sort of get what you're saying with that. I would like to have seen maybe just something a little bit more exciting to say this is our hot hatch, especially given MGs of old. But I also understand a lot of people like that sort of, you know, subtle look that the car does provide. So we'll leave it at that, okay? I'm not going to criticise it for that, but personally, I'd like to have seen something a little bit different in terms of differentiating the XPower from the rest of the cars. But I do understand a lot of people quite like the XPower's sort of like subtle look, so we'll leave it at that. The big chrome MG badge on the front there, forward-facing camera. A lot of tech still on it, and of course the MG Pilot ADAS systems, that's changed as well, and we'll go through that and we'll go into the interior of the car. But yeah, they've left the design well alone, and I'm pleased about that overall. From the side, you really can't tell the new model. As I say, apart from the new colour, obviously, that it comes in. It's still got the same 18-inch 5-spoke alloy wheels on this XPower. The other models have a new design of alloy wheel on it, but the XPower still gets these ones. But they still also get the silly orange covers over the calipers. Why not just do the calipers orange, MG? Anyway, there we go. Again, as I say, the tech on the car, the camera there, this sort of like nice contrast black there that helps pinch the bodywork in. I like that with this sort of like graphite graphic through it there. Some really nice classy body colour door handles with some nice tech. Privacy glass is standard. So as I say, they haven't really changed the sort of like the design of the car from the side view, but what they have changed, you can see from the back. And that is, it has a new rear spoiler. Gone is the old two-piece one, and now you've just got a single unit across the back of the roof there, which I think gives it a bit more of a kind of modern look. I quite like the twin spoiler of the old one, don't get me wrong, but I quite like this as well. You know, it's a really nice sort of like modern look to the rear of the car. The rest of it they've left, and I like that. You still get this really nice light graphic across the top of the light unit itself. So of course you've got this Perspex light unit that goes all the way across the back of the car with the main lights there, but then this really nice crisscross lighting thing on the top of it. I really like that. I like the fact the MG logo again is behind the Perspex as well. That looks really nice. Subtle XPower badge there, so as I say, other than the wheels and the orange calipers covers, that's the only thing you'll know that it's the XPower with. Camera for reversing in there, as I say, we'll talk about tech a bit later on. Of course, reversing sensors, and that titanium finished diffuser section down there as well. Like I say, they've changed quite a lot to the car, but the design isn't one of them. Now, as I say, personally for me, I think the XPower would have been nice to see something just a little bit more hot hatchish, but that's me. I'm from an era, the 80s, that everything had red pinstripes and red seat belts and stuff like that and big alloys, but I appreciate a lot of people like the sort of sleeper look that the XPower gives, and they've left it well alone from that point of view. So I appreciate I might be sort of like, you know, sort of like in the minority when it comes to stuff like that. But what do you think? Have you got an MG4, especially an XPower? Do you like the way that it looked? Was it one of the things that attracted you to the car? What would you have changed? Would you have done a bit more to it? Do you think they should have done, maybe, I don't know, new alloy wheels and red stripes or whatever? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, obviously, Practicality hasn't changed from the first car because it's still exactly the same before at 363 litres. Which from memory is 20 litres down on the ID3 and the Cupra Born, and a lot less than you get out of the Renault Megane E-Tech, which is obviously another C-Sector 5-door hatchback in this area. You still got the 60-40 split rear bench in the back, and if you fold that down, it takes total capacity up to 1,177 litres. But in fairness, whilst it's a little bit down on some of its competitors, it's not exactly lacking in space. I mean, I don't have my suitcases with me today because I'm on the UK launch of the car, but I think that's still a reasonable size of boot for a 5-door family hatchback. I don't see anybody really has been complaining about MG4's practicality, and obviously they offer things such as the S5 and S6 EVs now, so if you do need more, you'd buy a different model, dare I suggest. There's no space up at the front, but there's just enough space under this floor where you can get the cable bag in as well, so that's not too bad, but there isn't like a false floor or stuff. What is nice is it's a flat load entry in. So as again, you know, there's no drop down into it, which the Megane does suffer from, in fairness. And the Megane also suffers from a boot. Whilst it's bigger than this boot, it's deeper. It's not longer, if that makes sense. And that's one area where I know a lot of people have criticised the Renault for. There's little pockets down at the side there you can drop things into, but there isn't any tie-down hooks. That's the only criticism I could really make of it. You know, it'd be nice if you had little tie-down hooks, if they'd maybe just put a little few extras in. But I think that's something a lot of the Chinese brands lack in, that sort of thought. People like Skoda, Volkswagen, you know, the European manufacturers, they tend to offer you more sort of like little accoutrements in the back of the boot, you know, for sort of like hanging luggage nets in and for dividing luggage up and stuff like that. The Chinese brands don't tend to do that. But other than that, I don't really think you can criticise it that much. As I say, it's a good shape, a nice flat load entry in, and I think it will probably suit most people's needs. Which means rear seat space hasn't changed either. But I'll still show you it. And it's decent. You know, 5-door family hatchback, nice amount of space. My driving position, there's new seats up front. We're going to talk about that obviously when we go in the front of it. But there's new seats up front. So, well, if you go for the MG4 XPower, there's new seats up front. So that's slightly different. But there's enough leg room here for me, sitting behind myself at 5'8". I can get my feet underneath the seat as well. There's door bins, you know, the decent sized door bins that are enough for most people. You get the pockets in the backs of the front seats as well. They're not particularly deep, but they've been enough for an iPad or a Kindle for the kids and stuff. Again, still just the one USB-C charging port. It'd be nice to have seen 2 there, but again, I'm sort of really trying to sort of like find fault where there really isn't any. It's got connectivity. There's a tiny little sort of like storage tray in there that you'd be able to drop some polo mints into. No centre armrest though. That's the only thing I will criticise you for, MG, in the back here. Be nice to see a centre armrest where somebody's put water bottles in. You'll probably just get a slightly smaller one in the door, but it'd be nice to see a centre armrest. Isofix points, they're just behind these flaps here, these velcroed flaps. Nice, they're easy to get to as well. But the materials is a big change. That's what we're going to talk about when we move into the front. And on this XPower, you've got this nice, almost sort of Alcantara style of material here, this micro suede with this leather look on the seats as well. The actual seats themselves are actually quite comfortable too, especially for the outer 2 people. You know, there's some nice cupping around the back and the shoulders. We've got some nice support, and they've got a reasonable length of squab that just sort of like comes up at the front there. I don't know if you can see that, to give support underneath the thighs. There's also a central head restraint as well, which I know was a criticism of the very, very first MG4s when they first came out, but they did add that after us, I think about a year and a bit of model production, so that has changed a little bit. But still, no centre armrest is really the only thing I can mark you down for in here. Other than that, it's pretty much as you'd expect. Right, big changes inside the car. This is where they've really sort of like made a big change to the actual like design of it, and it brings it more in line with the other models, you know, of recent times, such as the MGS5 EV and the MGS6 EV. And it's a really welcome change as well, because the old MG4 interior was good, it was okay, but there was elements of it that, you know, that was starting to really show its age now. This brings it in line with the rest of the family, and there's been a real upstep in materials as well. And everything just feels just that little bit more, I'm not going to far to say premium, but it certainly feels more premium than it was, okay? So you've still got 2-screen layout effectively. You've got a 12.8 inch infotainment screen here, which I've always found on MGs as the sort of like as the years have gone on has become much, much better. The very, very first cars like the old ZS EV and the first MG5 Estate and things like that, it was quite laggy, the screen and things like that. It's got so much better over the years, and again, it's another continuous improvement. Then in front of the driver, you've got this 10.25 inch driver's display, which is actually mounted into the dashboard, and again, that is a much better and clearer than it was. A lot of information still in it, but the screen's big enough that it can handle it, and actually you still got it all separated out enough that it's not too confusing. I'll go through that in a second. Right, the infotainment screen here, you get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You've got new upgraded MG Pilot safety adaptive driver assistance systems as well, which is camera based now as well. So that's a big change. They did tell us how many functions that it had. It's got quite a lot on it. But one of the most important things I think is that you can go in and set up how you want. So a bit like Renault do with the My Perso, and some manufacturers are doing now. You can go into it and set up the driver assistance systems that you want on. So you go into your MG Pilot here, and there's your MG Pilot Custom. Okay, so when you first get the car, you confirm that. You go in and change it. Right, what do I want? Well, I want to change, I don't want the speed limit recognition on, I don't want the lane keep assist on, and so you set it all up how you want it, and you program all the things in you want, and then you save that, okay? And then when you get in the car, if I've done this correctly, when you get in the car and you swipe down, there you go, MG Pilot Custom, you press it once, and I think then it comes up, it's not on at the moment, but it will then come up and ask you to confirm that you want to have that, and you press to confirm, and that's it, okay? So it's just the same as the Renault Perso button. You press it once, and then press it again to confirm it. It's just a swipe of the screen, then a press of the button, press to confirm, and they're all turned off. They've turned off, as you know, they've set up to your program. Brilliant, well done MG, really, really like that. So that's well worth mentioning, that one in there. Of course, you still get sort of like things like, you know, your inbuilt navigation system as well. As I say, you get wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, as you would expect, and of course all your usual sort of like various safety systems that you get with the MG Pilot. But as I say, it's now camera-based system as well now. And you can program certain things on the dashboard here. So for instance, your right side dashboard here, these are the different functions that it can go through. So you can have things such as trip meters, vehicle status, your media, what it's playing, and a smaller navigation instruction over on that side as well. So you can change those type of things, you know, to suit yourself. So there's a lot more personalization available in the car as well. Moving across to the driver's display, as I say, it's bigger now, obviously, and it's inbuilt into the dash. You've got the battery readout on the left-hand side there, and then we've got here the ADAS system, sort of like camera function, so it tells me, you know, if there's a car over on that side. So again, a lot of cars have that, where it'll tell you what you've got surrounding vehicles. Central speedo, and then over this right hand side is the one, as I say, that you can scroll through and change to have various different things depending on what you want to see there. And as I say, you can program which things you want in there. So obviously get things such as heated seats and heated steering wheel in this particular XPower as well, so the equipment tally is really high on the car. You can also set up two favourites here on the steering wheel as well, which is something you've also had with MGs as well. So if you press you know, the left hand side, that's set up on this car to go into one of the 4 levels of regenerative braking. Low, medium, strong and adaptive. And then the one that's on this side, if my memory serves correctly, it has been set up for one of the 5 driving modes that you can go into. We'll talk about that a bit more when we go out to drive it. You've got driver attention monitor mounted on the steering wheel as well, so that's integrated into the column cowling, which is quite nice. But look at this design, it's a lot nicer. And you used to have that little shelf that used to come out from the dashboard. Now you've got this long sort of proper console that separates driver and front passenger. You get wireless charging here, it's all covered in Alcantara, so again it's the premium feeling materials that you get. You get obviously the 2 cup holders mounted up here. You still get the rotary transmission selector on the MG4, so push it for park, twist it to the left for reverse, and all the way to the right for drive. And then you've got loads of sort of like storage underneath this console here. The only downside is it's just a bit sort of like, you know, just matte sort of like scratchy plastic. It'd just have been nice if they'd just done that little bit with the Alcantara as well, because the rest of it feels so good, you do notice that it's not there, that's what I mean. But the actual materials that you've got in it as well, you know, the sort of like the soft touch leather-like material that covers the dashboard, you know, in the centre console, does feel good. And as I say, so it just sort of like amplifies the areas where they haven't done it. That's what I mean, you know, so it's not a problem. It just would have been nice while they were there just to have done that. That would have been quite good. You get a little slot in there you can drop your wallet into. Decent sized door bins as well. You've got this nice sort of titanium finish, aluminium almost across the dash as well, the centre of the dash. And you get some physical controls here as well. So all the climate controls are on these physical buttons here. So you've got, again, I always get confused with this because they put the little picture of the fan on this button here. You think that twisting that is actually your fan speed. It's not, that's your temperature control. Then the up and down toggle is your fan speed. I wish they'd do that the other way around. And then you've got full defrost for front screen, hazard, heated rear screen, and then there's your direction toggle there. And then this one here is your volume, and then also to take you to the home screen via that button there. The steering wheel's the same as it was, that nice 3-spoke design, so you still get the little bit of design like the front apron on there. And then you've got the, so say, the 6 buttons, 3 on this side, 3 down this side here, you know, for cruise control. Changing the screen on this side here, your 2 favourite buttons, and then your 2 thumb toggles, which are nice and easy to move. And they've got the fact that it's just physical controls. You know, it's nice when you like touch them and use them and move them. Just feels good, I think, you know, rather than touch sensitive stuff. And MGs have always got proper big clunky, you know, proper buttons, you know, when you press them. They're nicely damped, but you know, they've got a nice feel to them. I really like the way that MG do that. That's good. The driving position, right, new seats. Okay, now the seats in the old MG4 XPower weren't too bad. They had some good shoulder support. These ones looked much sportier with a one-piece backrest on them. This nice sort of like suede and leather-like material down the side bolsters. It feels really grippy, you know, you just feel like you're being really held in place. Of course, you get the little kind of section through the back there, the little sort of like open section there. But just as I say, there's been a real uplift in the quality of the materials, and you can really appreciate the differences you get. And as I say, when you use this now, you know, as I say, everything's a lot snappier than it used to be. But as I say, that's always been the case with MG. Every sort of like time they've changed it for a new model or an updated model, it always feels like they've really concentrated on making this better, and I really do like it. Obviously, you can get various different things in here. You can get online services. You can see here Spotify. You can have that downloaded into the car. YouTube, Amazon Music, TikTok, various different things like that. So yeah, a big change in the interior for the MG4. I really like it. See, the old one was good, but this one's so much better. And as I say, it brings it in line with the other models in the range. But as I say, if you've got an older MG4 and you look at the new one, you'll really appreciate the difference in the quality of materials. As I say, not there was a huge amount wrong with the old car, but this one is a real step up. And as I say, it brings it in line with the newer models, the S5, the S6 EV, you know, and even some of the IM models, and you can really tell. And all the little differences add up to make a big difference. Now, they've simplified the range, okay, with the MG4, because there's now the MG4 Urban, which, although it's a different car, and I got the impression it's much more marketed as a B segment SUV, believe it or not, it's actually slightly longer than the MG4 Hatchback. Go figure that one out. But that car is effectively replacing the smaller battery versions of the MG4, okay? So you just get 3 models in the MG4 hatchback now, okay? Please forgive the phone, because we were literally given this information about 45 minutes ago. All right, so I had to quickly write it down. There's 2 battery sizes available in the MG4. It's a 64 kilowatt hour LFP battery if you go for the premium long range, which is the lead-in car to the range, and also this XPower. So they get the same 64 kilowatt hour batteries. In the premium long range, that will give you a range of up to 280 miles according to WLTP tests, and on the XPower it drops to 251 miles because obviously it's XPower. But that's pretty much what the old car did anyway. There's no difference in that sense. Different charging speeds, oddly enough, not sure why. 154 kilowatts on the premium long range, but only 140 kilowatts on the XPower. There you go. I don't have the 10 to 80% charge times on this, so I'll put them I'll find them out and put them in the banners to the side there. If you're a bit of a range monster and you need to go further, then that's the next model up. It's the premium extended range, okay? And that gives you a 77 kilowatt hour NCM battery. And that increases your range according to WLTP tests to 338 miles, which is pretty impressive given the price point of the car, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The DC charging power is down on that car, although it's 144 kilowatts. So given that sort of like size of battery, 144 kilowatts, it probably just tips over the 30-minute range to go from 10 to 80%. But as I say, I'll pop them into sort of like the side banners there for you. But you know, again, it's a nice simple range. If you don't need this level of car and you don't need this level of range, then as I say, what MG are saying is that's where the new MG4 Urban model fits in. You know, the lower model, and that effectively replaces the lead-in versions of the old MG4. They've concentrated on the higher models, the bigger battery versions of these, because they say in terms of customers, what they were actually choosing was, most people, I think it was something like 80% or over 80% of people were always going for the bigger battery versions of the MG4. So that's why they've done it that way. Right, now out on the road, I remember driving the first MG4 XPower when it came out, and I came away a little bit disappointed. And it's hard to think how you could be disappointed with a car that has 429 horsepower, will do 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds, and cost, you know, £37,000 as it did at the time. But I just always felt it should have offered a bit more. There should have been a bit more to the car than just straight line speed. And that's always where I felt the XPower kind of let me down a little bit. I was expecting more of a hot hatch experience from it, you know, a more engaging car. There's no denying that it's fast. My problem was it wasn't that much fun. They've pretty much left well alone when it comes to the mechanics of the car. But now I'm sort of re-evaluating my feelings about it in some respects, because maybe I'm expecting too much from this thing, you know, by hanging the hot hatch label on it as such. Thank you very much, Mr. Lorry Driver. And maybe I need to view it slightly differently. But let me address the problem I have with it when we talk about it as a hot hatch, because in fairness to myself, MG did mention that a couple of times this morning, you know. So 429 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds. You know, I can't think of how you would go faster for less. You know, and as I say, especially now the price has been reduced. You know, £34,000. That's incredible value when you think about it. And when you look at the mechanical setup of the car, dual motors, you know, McPherson struts up at the front, a 5-link independent rear end to the car, almost 50-50 weight distribution. You think, well, that's a good starting point, that's a good recipe. And you know, and it is a good starting point. But it's difficult to describe. The car just has a sort of a lack of engagement. As I say, there's no denying about the speed. You can't go away. You put your foot down and this thing just absolutely takes off. It's like standing on a cat's tail. Not that I'd advise you do that, but that's exactly what it's like. It just picks up its skirts and it throws you towards the horizon at great rate of knots. But it's when you're on these sort of like more twisty roads, you start to realise that the steering doesn't have that sort of weight behind it you'd quite like. You know, it's dealing with a lot of power, you know, between the two motors. But what it's not giving you is any real feedback of where the front wheels are. It's putting the power down quite cleanly, but it's just not very engaging. I'd sacrifice some of the power to have a bit more feel at the front of the car. That's what I'm trying to say. There just feels like, you know, cars where you've got, you know, like the little mini John Cooper Works, and maybe say the Alpine 1890, which are obviously a lot less power, but they're more fun to drive because they're just a bit more engaging. Yeah, I get it, you know, off the line at a set of traffic lights, there is something quite satisfying to be had, you know, showing a very clean pair of heels to a big supercar or sports car when you're in a 5-door, you know, sort of like family hatchback. I get that. But I just want something that's a bit more engaging to drive. That's my only problem. But I don't want you to think it's a bad car, because it's not, because the MG4 is a really good car. I just maybe think the XPower, like I said in that original review I did for AutoEV, it maybe isn't the MG4 that I would personally buy for myself. I think because it's not that engaging a car in terms of its hot hatch, I would then sacrifice some of that power and go for the longer range. Because let's be honest, you know, the premium extended range car isn't exactly a slouch. You know, it's still a quick car, but you're getting much more range. You sacrifice quite a bit when you go for the XPower. You know, 250 miles WLTP. In reality, having driven it over a longer distance, it's closer to 220 to 230, and it's even closer to the 200 mark on a motorway. I'd go for more range personally, if it was me. That's what I would do. But going back to the car and actually how it drives, Well, as I say, you've got a good setup in terms of its mechanical setup. Dual motors. There's a huge amount of grip out of the car. I mean, the roads are really changing surfaces today. In terms of, you know, there's some wet bits, there's some greasy bits, you know, there's some leaves on some bits, there's some mud on other bits, and at no point am I feeling that it's feeling a bit skittish at all. You know, trying to put power down through these sections, going through this wooded section here. The car feels very, very sure-footed, and I would think with a set of winter tyres on it through the winter time, this would actually be quite, you know, give you a lot of confidence in being able to put the power down quite cleanly. You've got 5 levels of brake regeneration on the car as well, and that's been set up here in the 4 levels of brake regen. You've got low, medium, strong and adaptive, and strong is pretty much one pedal driving. So that's another thing that's also you know, welcome as well. The suspension works exceptionally well on the car. You know, despite the fact, as I say, it's you know, the steering's maybe not quite as feelsome as I would like. There's no doubt about it. The suspension copes well with all the surface imperfections that it's giving me here. And again, going along these sort of, you know, more sort of narrow roads and things, you know, there's potholes, there's ruts and things, and at no point is it really crashing into them. You've also got different driving modes as well, depending. That's what there's 5 of. There's 5 different driving modes that you can go into, and this has been set up on the steering wheel favourites. You've got Eco, Normal and Sport, as you would normally have, and then you've got a further 2 which is Snow and Custom, and obviously when you're in the custom mode you can tailor it as to how you want, so that's it. And Snow just, you know, sort of like alters the level of torque that's being distributed, so you can be a little bit more deliberate with the throttle. But going from normal into sport, and I've got it in the sport mode at the moment, that's my point. It's not like it changes the real character of the car, it just changes the throttle response in that sense. So when you put your foot down, it's really sharp acceleration rather than just exceptionally fast acceleration. It doesn't really weight the steering up. It doesn't have like adaptive dampers where it changes it, you know, to make it just give you a bit more feedback through the chassis. It doesn't do any of that. It just makes the throttle sharper, so you access the performance with less of a movement of your right foot. That's it. And that's sort of my point, and dare I suggest my problem with the car. But I really have to say, it's not the car that's at fault, and maybe not even MG. But I can't help thinking when, as I say, they said this morning, you know, hot hatch, you go, well, is it? And the fact of the matter is, it isn't really. You know, it's a very, very fast, and I mean exceptionally fast, 5-door family hatchback. But that doesn't necessarily translate into being a good hot hatch. They're 2 very different things. And that's why I think, for me, as good as the XPower is, it still isn't the pick of the MG4 range. I would go for, personally, the premium extended range car. And at that point, what you then have is still a really good 5-door family hatchback that's got some performance. And it's a big difference. Now, I think MG4 has always offered good value for money in the marketplace, but I think this revised car, it's even better. Because they've simplified the range, you only get the 3 models now. So you get your premium long range car, which kicks the range off at $29,995. Now that's not what I'm going to call a base car, because it's not exactly basic. You still get things such as your whole suite of MG Pilot driver assistance systems, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, heated front seats, heated steering wheel, wireless phone charging, leather-like and cloth, you know, seats, 18-inch alloy wheels. That's all still standard at $29,995. Now that's around about £2,750 less than the model that it effectively replaces. Okay, if you want the same level of equipment but need more range, then you go up to the premium extended range car, and that's coming in at 32,995. Okay, so that's 300, it's a well over 300-mile range, same level of equipment at £33,000. But it's this XPower that I think is incredible value for money. Dual motor, 400, or over 400 horsepower. Massive load of standard equipment on the car, 33,995. Okay, the last car was 37,995. It's nearly £4,000 less than the car it replaces. And remember, it's MG, so you still get your 7-year warranty as you do with every MG product. So when we talk about value for money, it's hard to think of a brand that's giving you more for less. Now, like I said, in the 4 years that the MG4 has been out, there's been a considerable change to the electric car market, and of course it faces even more rivals, and some of them themselves have been updated. Of course, we've got the new Peugeot E308 that I tested just at the end of 2025. That's had a big upgrade, and that's a car that competes with the MG4. There's also its cousin from Vauxhall, the new, which has also just been revised as well, the Vauxhall Astra, and I'm going to be driving that car in a few weeks' time as well, the revised Vauxhall Astra. So it'll be interesting to see what that car's like in its revised form. And of course, we've also got cars such as the Volkswagen ID3, which are still here, and the Renault Megane E-Tech, which has always been my favourite car in this sector. Really good car, that Renault Megane E-Tech. I ran one as a long-term test car, and I was deeply impressed with it. So yeah, so I really like the Megane, and those cars are there. The Coupe Reborn, that's still a car that's very much here as well. And of course, it features a little bit more, dare I suggest, on the sportier side of things as well. So of course, maybe the slightly higher end VZ model you're going to look at in comparison with, say, the XPower. But it's a lot more money than you get, and obviously not quite as powerful as you get with the XPower version. Dare I suggest maybe a bit more, looks a bit more like a hot hatch, but of course, you got to pay the extra for that. And if we do start thinking of just hot hatches for a second against this XPower, then you're maybe going to also include cars from below, in terms of size-wise, such as, I don't know, the Mini John Cooper Works as well, the Alpine A290, maybe cars such as that, Vauxhall Mokka GSE, the Alfa Romeo Junior Veloce, those style of cars, they maybe need to be considered as well. So as I say, the MG4 is having to sort of like appeal to a much broader range of people now, right across its range. But as I say, you can't knock what MG are offering when it comes to a value for money proposition. Despite an onslaught of new models, the MG4 remains one of the brand's most likeable and best products that it's launched. 4 years on, it's easy to understand why its popularity has been so large, especially in the UK. And if we thought it offered value for money before, now it just got a whole lot better. But I will say this, the XPower, despite its scintillating performance, is still the MG4 that I would probably leave behind in the showroom, because whilst there's a lot of fun to be had in a straight line, it soon fades away when it comes to the corners. And I would sacrifice some of that performance for the longer range of the car that sits in the middle, the premium extended range car, which is the one that I think is the real pick of the bunch. If we thought the MG4 was good before, MG just made it an awful lot better, and it's still one of the best cars in its class. Thank you for watching another new car review here on House of Cars. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the House of Cars channel, and then when you've done that, make sure you've turned on your notifications so you don't miss the next one when it's uploaded and it's gone live. If you've enjoyed this review, and obviously I hope you have, give it a little thumbs up for me, and don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below, especially if you own an MG4. Let me know what you think of the car. How have you been getting on with it? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Or are you now tempted to go for one now they've made these changes to it? Let me know your thoughts down below. Now remember, if you want to follow me, I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram. If you're a fan of the gram, you can find me at House of Cars 1973. And remember, whether or not it is a, well, very fast car or a slow car, an old car or a new car, a small car or a large car, you'll find them all here in the House of Cars. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for your continued support. I'll see you again soon.